Well, from feedback by President Cyril Ramaphosa on the South Africa United States working visit to legislation addressing the injustices of this country's past to municipal audit outcomes. This past week saw both President Cyril Ramaphosa and his Deputy President Paul Mashatile appear before the two houses of Parliament. Ramaphosa also established a commission of inquiry to determine whether attempts were actually made to prevent the investigation and prosecution of apartheid-era crimes. And for this discussion, we've roped in political analyst Dr Levy Ndou for this week's political wrap, as well as other political stories making headlines today. So, Dr Ndou, it's good to have you with us. Thank you so much for your time. So, this week, members of Parliament actually took the opportunity to take a serious swipe at the president, of course, at the back of his recent US visit, mainly accusing him of not being able to defend the misinformation about the white genocide as well as race-based laws in the country. Were you satisfied with his responses to Parliament? And what stood out for me was the fact that he actually did take to call out against some of the members for not wanting transformation in the country, a stance that he didn't show at the White House.
Good afternoon to you, Alicia. Good afternoon to the viewers at home. Happy Youth Month to you and the viewers. Well, I think there are things that South Africa has been able to achieve with the meeting that they had with the President of the USA. The first thing, in my view, that they were able to achieve has been to open the channels for communication between South Africa and the US. And that, in my view, has paved a way for further negotiations to take place. Whilst briefing the public about the developments surrounding the US-South Africa relations, the minister in the presidency highlighted the fact that they've been able to achieve issues that will relate to trade relations between the two countries. They've also been able to ensure that there is a pathway to mend relations between the two countries. But what we also do know is that the US has been relying on misinformation and lies. Whether the US wants to believe this misinformation or wants to be clarified by the South African government is something else. But another issue that is quite important is that there are things that are beyond South Africa's control, which are that if the US wants to believe these lies, you cannot do anything about it because that is what they've chosen to believe in. What South Africa can constantly do would be to open up the lines of engagements between us and the US to ensure that such activities do continue to happen, and indeed they should try their best to end up convincing the US about our situation. But if you look at how the president had to deal with matters relating to anti-transformation, we need to observe the fact that different political parties, when they meet in their policy conferences and other gatherings, other political parties could not attend or they're not invited. And they end up not understanding how certain policies were adopted and the reasons behind such policies. And I think President Ramaphosa took advantage of the question that was asked on matters relating to transformation to explain why we have this kind of transformative policies in South Africa, and indeed to advise everybody in the country that if we leave matters as they are, we will not be in a position to deal with the different divisions that we have in society, and indeed class divisions, which are the source of inequalities in this country.
I mean, let's continue with that. I mean, Dr. Ndou, there was also a huge debate, if we're speaking about those policies, transformative policies, the issue over the BEE relaxation in order to allow Starlink to operate in South Africa. The conversations that followed after the initial announcement there by the minister, it had the country quite divided, and many saying that this actually proved that government can actually change overnight some policies for others. But when asked to fix our current loopholes that actually enable certain abuses like your immigration issues, it then becomes endless consultations and excuses by the government. What do you make of this notion?
We need to acknowledge that apartheid had its own policies, which were based on dividing South Africans, which were based on ensuring that we've got a superior and an inferior race, which was based on ensuring that a certain group of people should actually be advantaged whilst the other is disadvantaged. We should also acknowledge the fact that even when we had a new government in 1994, we still had people who were against having democracy in this country. And these people are still alive. They are part of government. They are part of society. They've formed political parties, and they will still do what they could be able to do in order to fight against the transformation agenda of this country. We still have people who are not happy when certain sectors of society, and indeed the majority and black, are getting access to the resources of the country. They will remain not happy. And that is why it becomes very difficult to convince certain sectors of society about the transformation agenda, because in any way, they did not want to see transformation happening in this country. It is not going to be an easy journey, but what we also need to acknowledge is the fact that in democracy, there are certain processes and procedures that we need to follow. You talk about consultation, which might take a longer period of time. Unfortunately, in a democracy, we need to conduct consultation so that whatever decisions that are taken, they should actually embrace the views of the society in general.
Absolutely, Doctor. I mean, there's also the other issue now. Let's move on to other news in this week. The issue of terrorist accused, as well as those charges later being dropped against Mr. Farad Huma, who has now made his bid to establish the Islamic State party that could, if elected, according to its main objective, introduce Sharia law into the country. The US has also sanctioned Mr. Huma, and as a big bank here in South Africa just closed his accounts. Any concerns here? Before you answer though, Doctor, let's quickly listen to this clip.
I don't think it's fair for you to bring up the old case, which I've given you a proof. All cases, all charges have been withdrawn against me. I mean, why it's coming up all the time, you know? If you want to put someone down, it's easy to pick up dirt on the person and, you know, put him down. So I think the reporters should stop using that old case that was there. I've given you a proof that you can go to SABC and you can give them my name. You'll see all the cases are withdrawn. I'm not lying to nobody. All the cases have been withdrawn against me. I have no criminal records, zero criminal records. You know, I'm a businessman for the past 25, 27 years, and I'm an honest businessman. You know, I haven't done any crime, so I don't understand why these things are coming up all the time.
Dr. Ndou, your take?
I think we need to acknowledge the fact that we are a democratic country.
True.
We also need to acknowledge the fact that having fought for universal suffrage, everyone has the right to vote and also to form a political party and participate actively in the political activities. We also need to acknowledge indeed that many people have seen politics as a career. They've decided to join it as a career, and they see politicians living a very, very good life. And most people will therefore choose to take politics as a career, to change people's lives, and also to benefit as individuals. But I think it's also important that with the new political party, the Islamic State of Africa party, of course, they will come with their own policies, and most people will be worried about issues that will be relating to the Sharian law, and which, in my view, might create conflict with our own constitution, because in the Sharian law, they talk about death as a form of punishment. They talk about cutting of hands and legs. They also talk about people getting lashes for certain criminal activities. So it's a party that we still have to see if it's going to be supported by many and indeed get to Parliament and try to propose some of the issues that they agree upon. But it's also important, Alicia, to acknowledge that we've got Muslims in the country, and maybe the formation of this party might have the majority of them joining this party and make an impact in the South African body politic.
Dr. Ndou, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for your input this afternoon. That is political analyst there, Dr. Levy Ndou, weighing in on political developments.